I was never invited to be in the Fired Football Coaches Association.
Come on, man. You're like one of the disciples of football. You went right into becoming a president of a university.
Hey, teammates, welcome to another episode of It's All About the Team. And you talk about a blessing today. The great Jon Gruden is with us today. So excited that you're here.
If I don't like it, if I'm not good enough, Portnoy's going to call me and say, you're out.
I always brag about the fact that we played in 9 national championship games with 8 different quarterbacks.
There's a salary cap in pro football because of one guy, Eddie DeBartolo.
We've got the best equipment that our money can buy.
That's good. I love the misery. I'm getting fired up talking to you.
Then the last one was we closed the door on the recruiting of Ohio kids to Michigan. That was key.
For the white team, Jon Gruden. I'm like, damn, yeah, this is unbelievable.
So what was your record against Alabama?
0-2.
No, it wasn't.
I learned more football from Bob McKittrick than anybody. Thank you, Coach. It's an honor to be on your show, man. Big
Well,
fan
you know
of
what?
yours.
We're kind of on the journey part of it. Here we are in your office area, and if the viewers could see all of the memorabilia and all of the jerseys and trophies and rings and whatnot, it's pretty special. And so my staff that came down with me, we shoot in my basement sometimes, and I have a little bit of stuff, you know. And they said, hey, this isn't anything like this guy's got you beat. I said, well, you know, he's younger. You know, that's the deal. But this is an honor to be here. And so here's why we're doing what we're doing. You think about when you were coaching, you wanted to add value to the young people you're coaching and get them ready for the rest of their lives. You wanted to win games for your community, your organization. You wanted to build that excitement. You wanted to make a difference. And so often society has been telling us that what's important is the individual and what can I get out of the deal. And I just happen to think that it's all about the team, and that we need more conversations about how do I build better teams, whether they're at home or they're in your business or they're in your sports team or your nonprofit organization or maybe the country or the world. We need to build teams. And so it's been fun. I've done a lot of coaches, business leaders, military leaders, healthcare professionals, trying to just add value to the people who are viewing. It's my own little classroom.
It's awesome.
It's not a comedy show or it's not an entertainment thing. It's my classroom, where we like to have a lot of fun in the classroom. A good classroom, you have a lot of fun. And so as I was studying Jon Gruden a little bit, one thing that I wanted to ask you before we really get into the meat of building teams is, I was never invited to be in the Fired Football Coaches Association after my exit from college football. And I was just curious to let the national audience find out, why was I not invited?
Come on, man. You're like one of the disciples of football. You went right into becoming a president of a university. You're big time. You are big time. You are one of the guys that I modeled my career after. I mean, your enthusiasm, your ability to teach, and, you know, to come to work every day when you don't feel great and still have that optimistic, positive charge. Man, I love you, brother.
Hey,
and
2 little guys from Ohio,
yeah,
who were blessed
that's right.
to have dads who were coaches' dads, moms, coaches' moms, who taught us that it ain't about us, it's about dad's team.
Yep.
I mean, how many times did the players come to your house and eat your food?
Shoot, I mean, we did it when I was coaching. We had players come to our house.
Right.
You know, but, you know, mom and dad were both teachers. And I can still see my mom, who was an elementary school teacher, going to school at 5:30, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning just to meet with the students to get extra credit work. You know, if you can get 90%, why don't you come in early? We'll get 95. And as soon as you get 95, Jimmy, why don't you come in next week? We'll get 100. Let's get them all. But that excitement to see somebody get better was the most exciting thing about it.
And you said the key word, teachers. Correct me if I'm wrong. When we were growing up, all of the coaches were teachers. They taught in the school building.
Yes.
The college coaches, like my dad and your dad, taught at the college. They didn't just coach. They were trained to be educators. Sometimes I worry that we have people that know about the game, but that aren't really understanding of how to be a teacher. That I'm worried that we're not giving our people everything they need because it's not led by teachers. Now, that's a biased opinion. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think you put it very mildly. I don't agree with what's going on. And I think a lot of it starts at the top. Who's sanctioning coaches, teachers? We're putting limitations, not on just coaches. I'm talking elementary school teachers, high school teachers. The discipline in the classroom, it's fading away. And that's where the problem is. Every once in a while, I believe this, the coach needs to be able to call everybody up and say, you know what? This is not good enough. We're starting the whole day over. I'm going back into the meeting rooms, back into the breakfast hall. We're starting the whole day over. You don't do it every day.
No.
You'd probably get incarcerated for doing that today.
Right.
But I think the discipline, the standard, I've heard people say, well, the standard is the standard. Well, if that's the truth, then we need to maintain that standard. And we got to try to reach above the standard. That's the goal here, is to be excellent. So I think you hit a raw nerve with me right there, man.
And we were lucky that we got to watch every day that mentality.
Yes.
That it was about doing it right, doing what the team needed, and doing it again and again. And as you think back to when you first subliminally learned about team at home, give me one lesson you learned as a junior high kid watching your dad coach, or younger than that, watching mom, give us an example of, that's what being a part of the team is. That's how you become a good teammate.
Well, I learned a lot about mental toughness. That to me was the lesson that resonated with me growing up with my dad. Not everything is going to be perfect every day. There's going to be not only losses on Saturday, he might not be able to get a pair of Nikes this week. Right. You got to work for everything. So everybody's got to do their job. And you hear Bill Belichick say that. Your job might be cleaning the dishes. Your job might be taking the garbage out. Your job, you might have to work a little bit after school so you can pay money to go to college. Those are the things that I kind of remember growing up. We all had our own jobs to contribute to the success and the progression of the family. Now, mine weren't as hard at jobs as maybe some other people had, but I do know a lot of people that have really worked hard together as a family to keep it going. And to
it's funny you bring up the jobs and didn't get any sneakers. So when I was like junior high, my dad decided I need to get my doctorate because I'm at this Division III school. I teach on the faculty. I go to the faculty for support for my players. I need to get at that level of excellence because I'm on the faculty. So he went to Indiana University. Well, back in the day, to get your doctorate, you had to have a 7-month residency. Mm-hmm. It may still be the same, I don't know. So right after the season, I think maybe I was a 8th or 9th grader, he left. No, I was probably younger than that. He left right after Christmas, and we didn't see him till August. Not only that, we didn't get paid at Baldwin Wallace. So, but he had to get back August for the season because he was still the coach, and so he gets back. We're broke. We sent reel-to-reel tapes because we couldn't afford the long-distance call. We sent talking to each other. Okay, you talk about how you make it as a team. Yep. Gets back for the season. We have the season. We get to Christmas. And I'll never forget it. Under the tree, there's a tie tack for my oldest brother, who became our running back coach, that my parents bought for 75 cents at Berea High School. For my middle brother, there was a book that he already had, so they might have just taken it off his shelf and wrapped it up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And for me, there was a pair of football pants that the sporting goods dealer gave him
Is that right?
because we didn't have a dime.
Yeah, my mom sewed our clothes till I was almost in high school. I mean, we would go to Joann Fabric Store and get to pick out our shirts and pants, you know. But
But that's what to me, you're lucky if you're around a team that teaches you, how to be that. So you were in high school while your dad was at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I remember your dad hosted us one time. I was coaching at Miami, and he hosted our whole staff. Dan Devine, got to meet Dan Devine, and it was such a thrill. And so, who was your high school head coach?
This guy's name was Elmer Britton.
Elmer Britton. Yep. Any lesson, a team you learned from Elmer?
Elmer Britton, he had a great passion for it. He would study football on Saturday, the day after the game. We'd have our meetings and go through the film, and Saturday he'd go home and watch Oklahoma play USC. And he'd see Thomas Lott running the wishbone. He'd come in there on Monday, we're putting in the wishbone. But that's one thing I remember about Elmer Britton. He was always studying, stealing, trying to find new ways to make a first down and win a game. And it was contagious. I kind of caught that passion for studying other teams and finding new ways to do things.
My high school coach, when I was a young quarterback and it looked like I might be his quarterback, would bring me down to his office, and he'd always say, "What kind of card game you like?" And I said, "Well, my dad and I play cribbage." He said, "Well, let's play a little cribbage." And we'd play cribbage for like 10 minutes. Then he'd bring out the football stuff. And he'd be, and I thought, man, I mean, I've watched football, but I never knew that this circle blocked that X and this.
Yeah.
Wow. This game's kind of fun if you know what's going on.
It gets to be an addiction. When you get around people that understand it, that can teach it, it really does become your addiction.
It becomes it's just like I'm sure some of these people are addicted to video games and so forth because you're competing.
Yeah.
And then you're around it.
And they're fun.
But learning those X's and O's and it's neat that an early person in your life, like your high school coach, got you fired up on something now that you have the disease. No one does X's and O's like you.
Well, I don't have much else, Coach. I just played golf. I'm not real good. I might as well get back in here and study some X's and O's.
So why Muskingum? And tell us about one of your
I went there because I thought I could play. I thought I could play as a freshman. I just wanted to play. And I go to Muskingum. I'm there for a year, and you know what they do on Friday night in New Concord, Ohio? They go to the laundromat and they watch the clothes spin around. There's not much to do there in New Concord. So I didn't last long, but one of my roommates was Daryl Hazel. He was our best player. He was a receiver. And he shouldn't have been at Muskingum. He should have been in the Mid-America Conference. He should have been playing Division I. He could run. He could return punts. He ran great routes. And we used to have a great time together. He ends up being your assistant. Mm-hmm. He ends up being the head coach at Purdue, head coach at Kent State, coaches for the Minnesota Vikings, and still is one of my best friends. So, football kind of connected all the dots in my life. My best friends. I met my wife. She was cheering at Tennessee. Just about everything that's happened to me has something to do with football.
Something to do with the team.
Something to do with the team.
They were there and somehow a part of the team.
Yep.
And so Daryl's son Kyle's coaching at Youngstown State and going to be a rising star. And it's started at Dayton as a student coach after he played, and so we got to rally behind Kyle because he is
I'm hoping I can get another job. Maybe you can get another job. We'll hire Kyle and let him call plays because this guy, he has the it factor. He does. Got the personality and he's got the passion for it. I think he's going to go a long way.
So I was somewhere when Kyle was playing in the semifinal game of the Indiana State Championship. And I get this text with a video from Daryl. And it's Kyle catching like a 60-yard touchdown and the place going crazy. And you saw that score up on the scoreboard, they went up and there were like 11 seconds to go. And Daryl's comment was something like, "We're going to state," or something like that, or "We won the state," something. 4 minutes later, I got a text from Daryl. Said, they ran the kickoff back.
Oh, my God.
We lost the game.
They probably fired the coach.
Right? or the special teams coach.
Yeah, somebody got fired.
All right, so was Coach Christopher or who was the head coach at Muskie?
Haycock.
Oh, Jeff Haycock.
Jeff Haycock.
Okay.
Coach Christie was a quarterback coach.
Okay, all right. So go back in memory. Anything you learned about being a good teammate or about building a team in your stop at Muskingum?
Well, it had a good coaching staff. Bob Mazzaros was there. Al Christopher was there. Haycock was a very
Bobby
good
Mazzaros?
coach. Yeah, he recruited me.
Well, he was at Miami with us.
Yeah, but they did a great job of just having fun, getting guys to play hard, running through the line, not to the line. I still remember the training camp practices were hard, man. And they had a pretty deep playbook from what I was accustomed to. They ran an ambitious playbook, and we weren't very good at that time.
They were a little unbalanced or something. Did they run some?
They run some unbalanced line,
yeah.
but I remember Haycock. He was a young guy going about 80 miles an hour. He had a real vision of what he wanted that team to look like, and unfortunately, I was playing quarterback, and I didn't help him execute his vision.
So then you went on to Dayton, and who was the coach?
Mike Kelly. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame,
Mike.
just like you.
Mike, what a good one.
Great. I still talk to Coach a lot and still try to stay connected with the Flyers. I got to sit in a quarterback meeting virtually, and we made a little contribution to the program a few years ago. I need to give back to the University of Dayton football team, because that place had more to do with me becoming who I am than any place that I've stopped at.
And they've done a great job as a university.
They really have.
I tell you what, I've been
got a great basketball program.
Oh, of course,
They got a well-known basketball program, and their football program is surviving. I just wish we could get that stadium back on campus. That would help us out a lot. So,
well, Welcome Stadium.
Yeah, that's Welcome Stadium. High school's playing it,
but it's not on the campus.
No,
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's not.
But the arena's on the campus.
The arena's not either. The arena's kind of right next to Welcome Stadium. You gotta drive to it. But anyways, it's a special place. It's great talking about Ohio again with you, Coach.
Bet. So, what did Mike do best on building teams? Because he had so many good teams.
Mike was a salesman. Mike, he was a great salesman. He could sell the game plan. He could sell the importance of getting to class. He could really help you envision yourself being better. He had a great charisma with how to get in the strength room, get one step quicker. 20 pounds on your bench. A little bit more agility. Learn the playbook a little bit more. But he cared about his players. He had so much enthusiasm. I mean, the guy, even when I see him now, hey, Griddle, how you doing? He just got that thing, man. It's a shame he got out of coaching when he did. He had a lot of chances to go into big-time college football. But I think he was happy and he got his fix. But he's still a big part of that program.
He made an impact with a lot of young people. And so did you go right from Dayton to Tennessee?
I did. My dad got me a Pontiac Grand Prix, and I drove to Knoxville, Tennessee, and Walt Harris was the offensive coordinator. Sure. He was one of the hottest guys in the country. Coach Dave Wilson and Tony Eason at Illinois just went to Tennessee, and we beat Miami just like you did in the Sugar Bowl, 35-7. They kicked their butt. So Walt was really hot. Yeah. And I was his GA. I didn't even know what a 3 technique was.
No.
And they're checking this to the 3 technique, this to the 5 technique, and what the hell's that? I don't know. I had to run the scout team for Johnny Majors. I was the whipping boy there. But they fast-tracked me, man. They gave me an opportunity of a lifetime, and that's when I first saw football in the big time for myself.
Yeah. I was just talking on one of the episodes with Alex Golish, who had got to spend some time at Tennessee, and I had never really been to Tennessee. You knew of Tennessee, but I'm from Ohio, and so the Knoxville Quarterback Club gave me some award or something. So it was the General Neyland Award. So I thought, well, I better learn about General Neyland because I knew Neyland Stadium, but didn't really know like I knew Woody Hayes or Bo Schembechler. You start reading about General Neyland and what type of both world wars he was in, won national championships, built the stadium. He was the engineer building the stadium, all that stuff. And what a special place to be. And that'll get football juices flowing in you having the chance to coach at Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a better place to see a game, you might argue Ohio State, but when you go watch Tennessee, I remember my very first experience there, it was the spring game after they won the Sugar Bowl. And they were going to break a world record, Guinness Book of World Record, for the most people to ever attend a spring football game. Now, Neyland Stadium has 99,000, 100,000 fans. So it was the GAs against the full-time coaches. I'm a GA. So we run out there. It's the orange and white game. I'm coaching the white team with the GAs. And they introduce your name. For the white team, Jon Gruden. I'm like, damn. Yeah, this is unbelievable. He is goosebumps, going down your veins, man. It was awesome. And then, you look around, there's Johnny Majors. Ron Zook is on the staff. We had a lot of guys that went on. Phil Fulmer was the offensive line coach.
Good one.
David Cutcliffe, who was at Duke, he was our tight end coach. We had a hell of a staff, man. And Ken Donahue was Bear Bryant's #1 assistant all those years. He was our defensive coordinator. Yeah. So I was in a football factory, and I loved it, man. I loved it.
How many years at Tennessee?
2.
So what was your record against Alabama?
0-2.
No, it wasn't.
We're playing Alabama.
I thought I was going to give you a good question.
Here's a great
I thought
one
you got them back then.
We're in a meeting. We're playing Alabama. We got the best coaching staff in the country. We got Phil Fulmer, David Cutcliffe, we got Walt Harris. They got Cornelius Bennett over here. So we had a great idea. Let's run at the other guy. Let's run away from Cornelius Bennett. Let's run after this guy and kick his butt. He's a freshman. So we run this way, and this guy, after the game, we realize it's Derek Thomas. We're running right into Derek Thomas the whole game. They were good, man.
But isn't that a fun game to be in?
Oh, gosh, it's the greatest. It's like Michigan, Ohio State, probably, but we didn't have the success when I was there.
So what was the best thing about your 2 years at Tennessee? This is a softball.
I met my wife.
Okay,
I met
good.
My wife.
See, if you didn't answer that way, we would have had to splice that out of this interview.
The best thing was I didn't have much to offer. I was a small college backup quarterback, and all these other GAs were big-time guys. All I had, my dad taught me, you can offer them 2 things, loyalty and hard work. So I decided I was going to be the hardest working GA of all of them. So I'd get in there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd splice the tape together. I remember Walt Harris, coming in there after a game Saturday. They would come in first thing Sunday morning. And a lot of these coaches, as you know, they get in there at 5 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would take the end zone copy and the all 22 sideline copy, and I would intercut it. So these coaches would walk in, and they're watching the film, and they're like, who in the hell did this? Santa Claus? Is Santa Claus? I said, I wasn't bragging. I said, I put that tape together. I was the best film splicer ever.
That was back when you were splicing.
Football. I learned football doing this stuff.
Oh, right.
And then, I got a little bit more and more responsibility. I'd get to sit next to Walt Harris in the press box. He said, don't ever talk to me. Just give me he gave me these little yellow stick-em
Post-it.
Write it down, stick it in front of me. So we're playing Auburn. And Auburn's great. They got Pat Dye and Brent Fullwood. Bo Jackson had just left. And I wrote on a stick-it thing, I said, draw pass 8, go, hit the post. It's a play we had. So Walt looked at me, it's the game. I looked at him. He goes, draw pass 8, go, tell Jeff to look for the post. And we tie the game 15-15. I think it was 15-15, something like that. Anyways, we hit Terrence Cleveland on this big play. That was kind of my recommendation. So here's the kind of guy Walt Harris is. We go in a meeting the next day, and Coach Majors walks in. He's really feeling pretty good because that was a big deal tying Auburn. We needed that win or tie. And that play comes up on the film. And Walt Harris goes, hey, Coach Majors. Coach Gruden called that play. That was Coach. He recommended that I called it. Coach Majors walks over. He goes, good call, Johnny. I ran right out. I called my dad. I said, guess what? Johnny Majors called me out in a minute. That's what, fuels your, ambition to do more and more and more. It was like a drug.
So both years you were a GA?
Yep.
And then you went to SEMO?
SEMO.
Cape Girardeau.
Yeah, I thought I was lost.
Right?
Yeah.
At least it wasn't humid there.
Yeah, it's a hot place
it's a hot
in the summer.
place.
Yep.
And so you were, what position did you coach?
Quarterbacks.
Yep. Who was the head coach?
Bill Maskell.
I remember Bill Maskell.
Bill Maskell.
Yeah.
He came from Oregon.
Yeah.
And we won the MIAA championship.
Wow.
I couldn't get paid, though, for the first 3 months. So I lived in a Howard Johnson's hotel, and I tore carpets out of schools and buildings. And I had to put the carpet, throw them out the window, put them in a dump truck. That's where I learned how to drive a stick shift. Take this dump truck to the dump and unload the carpet. I did that for 3 months before I started getting paid. That was tough, man. That was a hot, smelly summer.
So how long were you there with?
6 months. One
Okay,
season.
so good lesson about team from Coach Maskell?
Well, it was the first time I was really on a staff. You know, you had to make do with what we have. You know, don't be bitching about we're not at Tennessee. Some of you guys, you think we're at Tennessee. You're on a bus, and we're driving to Troy, Alabama to play Troy State. You know, so don't get hung up with not having all the things that some of the number one Division I programs have. Make do with what we have. And, you know, that was interesting.
It's a good lesson.
That was a great lesson there.
Well, you know, Coach Paterno used to always say, don't bitch about the kids. They're the only ones we got. You know how you hear coaches say all the time, oh, we got to get better players. Wait a minute. We've got the guys we've got. Now, recruiting is recruiting and the draft is the draft. But today, this is who we got. And so don't waste any time. And the same is true with resources.
Yep.
I mean, hey, we got what we got.
You got to reinvent your coaching style,
right?
Based on who you're coaching and what you have. You know, you might not have access to all the practice film and all the things that you used to have, but you just have to reinvent the way you teach and the way you operate.
You know, someone asked me once, what do you think was the best thing that your staffs did over the years? And I thought about it and I said, you know, the one thing I was amazed was they figured out what our guys could do, and that's what we did. Whereas so often you hear of these coaches that have this system, you know, they try to plug the guy into the system. I always brag about the fact that we played in 9 national championship games with 8 different quarterbacks who were all different. Some could throw it, some could run it, some could do this, some could do that, you know. But that's what our staff did is you take what you've got and build your team around their abilities and around the resources we have. And we used to tell our players all the time at Youngstown, we've got the best equipment that our money can buy.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't have the best equipment that money can buy.
That's right. We're doing the best we can is
but
basically
what our money could buy.
Yep.
So how'd you get out to Pacific?
Well, Walt Harris got the head coaching
he
job.
became the head coach.
Yeah, Walt was an alumni.
Yeah.
He went to UOP. And UOP is a football factory.
Pete Carroll, right?
Pete Carroll, Buddy Ryan, Eddie LeBaron. I mean, they got a lot of guys
Wow.
that came through UOP. But
Where's that, in Stockton?
Yeah, Stockton, about 90 miles from San Francisco. And Walt, he says, you're going to be the tight end coach. And I said, tight end coach? He goes, you're going to learn about offensive line play and how the running game goes. And I knew how Walt operated. Walt he's the all-time Gruden grinder. And this sucker will watch tape with you.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll watch tape all night. And we had some long meetings, man. And I'm like, tight ends. So I had to learn what a 6 technique was, and power 2-step on the power play, how to block the C gap, pass protection, a completely different view of football, and it really helped me grow. Problem was, Walt, he realized we could recruit a bunch of receivers. We ended up running a run and shoot. So we got 4 wides out there. I said, where the hell's my tight ends?
Right.
I don't have anybody to coach.
Well, you know, I bet you if we did a little data study of how many of the guys that became head coaches who were offensive guys coached the tight ends, because they knew
That's right.
the run and the pass. If you get the quarterback guy, well, he might just be too quarterback oriented. You get the offensive lineman, you know, line coach, they might be just thinking about the run game. But you get the guy that, and we were just talking with one of our other guests, you can't put enough value on responsibility. That's your greatest capital. For you having to learn that changed your coaching trajectory.
It really did. And then really when I went to the 49ers the next year, working for that team at that time. Eddie DeBartolo and forget the back-to-back world champions, being in Mike Holmgren's quarterback meetings. But the guy I met there was Bob McKittrick.
Oh.
Bob was the offensive line coach, and I was his quarterback. I would go out there. I was the quarterback during one-on-one pass rush, and he make sure your snap count sounds just like Joe's. The only thing I could do like Joe Montana was imitate his snap count.
Okay.
So I would mix up the count. We'd go on one, go on two, and I would sit in his meetings a lot of times just to see myself on the film, watching Charles Haley rush me and all that stuff. I learned more football from Bob McKittrick than anybody. And in 30 minutes, he could teach more football than most guys I've been around could teach in a week. He spent more time preparing for his meeting than he did for anything. He broke down all the films. He did the run game, the pass protection. He was a Tommy Prothrow disciple. He knew how to block the Crowther sled. I had to go out there and learn the Crowther sled progression, the one-hand flippers and all that stuff. It was phenomenal. He was an ex-Marine. He was a hard ass. He was tough, and he was smart, and he was a great teacher.
Well, and all those coordinators that came through there, because we were out there enough, Mr. DeBartolo let us just sit and study, that if McKittrick didn't want it in the insertion or the game plan, it wasn't going in. I don't care what the coordinator said.
Yeah.
He was special.
He would stand down there with his big arms, his bald head, and he had a pad of paper, and he'd be writing down during the game. And I can still remember on the headset Holmgren saying, "What do you want, Bob?" 69 handoff solid out of Brown right west. He always had the answer. They were playing the Bears one year. Bob had that short sleeve shirt on. And it was so cold, Bob could hardly talk. So Bill Walsh was saying, "What do you want, Bob?" 69 handoff solid. Bill says, "If you don't put your freaking coat on, I'm going to fire you." But he was unbelievable. He was the best freaking teacher I ever met, and I was fortunate to be around him.
Well, you become a product of who you get to learn from.
Yeah.
And, you being on the right teams helps you become a team builder. And one of my goals in this podcast, it's all about the team, is one of these days to have Mr. DeBartolo and look from his vantage point, because whether it's you coaches that have coached with them or the players that I ran into over the years that played for him, the magic started with his ability to somehow get everyone wanting to play together. And so as you think back to those San Francisco days, if you had to pick the top two reasons why they were a great team, and I'm not letting you say great talent.
Well, it starts with Eddie DeBartolo. I mean, they're on the cutting edge. I'm not just saying this because you got your Youngstown shirt on either. My wife, Cindy, was a personal trainer for his daughter. She would drive from Pittsburgh to Youngstown when I was coaching at Pitt. And I love the DeBartolo family, but I'm not here to, say anything that's not the truth. The 49ers were on the cutting edge of everything. Their facility, the amount of effort he put into that facility at that time, 10 times better than everybody else's. The way we traveled. I mean, the players had their own seats. They weren't sitting next to anybody. They had their own rooms on the road. The way we ate, everything was first class. I mean, completely training camp, you name it. Phenomenal contribution to the team that he made. I mean, he made your lifestyle great.
Yep.
And he also had high expectations. There's a salary cap in pro football because of one guy, Eddie DeBartolo. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm on the team. We ran a 34 defense. And Bill McPherson, he's the defensive coordinator. The most important guy, he used to say, the most important guy, talk like this. The most important guy in the 34 defense is the nose tackle. So we got to have a nose tackle, because if you can single block the nose tackle, you can't run this defense. Well, our nose tackle was Michael Carter. He was the best in football.
Yep.
You know who our backup nose tackle was? Jim Burt. We brought him in from the New York Giants. And then we had Fred Smerlas from the Buffalo Bills, who went to 5 Pro. We had 3 nose tackles. Only one can play at a time. And we got Steve Young as our backup quarterback. So all these salaries, he didn't care. He wanted to win, man.
So what year did the salary cap start?
I can't remember officially what year it was, but
wow. I didn't realize that.
Everybody wanted to play for the 49ers.
Right.
The way we practice, coach, phenomenal. I still have the video. I show teams. I used to show our teams when I was coaching. Don't tell me we have to have helmets on and we have to have all this contact. We can still practice at full speed if we have a certain etiquette. I mean, the 49ers would practice every Friday with no helmets. And Joe Montana's throwing post patterns and Ronnie Lott's back there, but there was a degree of etiquette. They weren't trying to kill each other.
Right.
They were trying to get ready to play. But, you know, the way that Bill Walsh and Eddie DeBartolo, the two visionaries of that program, worked together, you know, that's why they had a dynasty. It was awesome.
Well, he showed that he cared about them, i.e. the way he treated them and paid them and all the rest. But one magic that I thought probably happened with the personnel people as well, okay, was their most talented guys seemed to be their hardest workers.
No doubt.
And when your most talented guys are your hardest workers, you got a chance for the other 47 guys, right, to raise their level.
Well, when Eddie DeBartolo would go in the locker room after the game, you know, you could see the respect and love that Jerry Rice had for Eddie DeBartolo. You know, I would see Bill Romanowski. I would see the great players, Montana. They lit up when Eddie walked in. He treated those guys great. If you played great, you were a great 49er, that was reciprocated by the boss.
Yeah.
And they, you know, I still remember Huey Lewis, the great rock and roll singer. We
had
everybody there. He had the it factor too. He was a rock
But even
star.
the guys that didn't play star-studded, I remember, I won't name names because a son of this guy was involved. So I was at a banquet in Dallas, coaching at Ohio State. This former 49er son was being highly recruited, one of the most highly recruited kids in the country. And we didn't happen to be recruiting him. He was in Texas somewhere and, you know, just whatever. We certainly would have, but it was one of those, I don't know if we'd have a shot at him. But so this former 49er comes up to me and says, hey, look, I know you know Mr. DeBartolo. I owe my life to Mr. DeBartolo. I didn't play there long. I wasn't a star player. But if it weren't for Mr. DeBartolo's encouragement and support and all the rest, he helped me through some hard times. He said, so if you would like my son to play for you, because of Mr. DeBartolo, I'll do it.
That's something.
And I'm like,
wow. You know, when the 49ers won their Super Bowls, my dad was there for 3 of them.
wow.
You know, he would fly my dad and my mom, the player and their wife or girlfriend, you know, on a beautiful jet to Hawaii. Then you get off and you get your Super Bowl ring. He gives you spending money to spend while you're over there. I mean, I don't even think this stuff's legal anymore, but he loved winning and he loved the 49ers and he loved people. Now, he also let you know, we better win.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
we better
right.
win. You could get your block knocked off by Eddie D too.
But he, you know, he had the ability to put a heck of a group together, though. Think of your personnel department, your dad, my old friend Norb Hecker. Remember Norb?
Yeah, I mean, you go out there, you see Norb Heckert and Neil Dolan, and then you go over there, there's John McVay and Tony Rosano running the scouting. Yep. Bill Walsh walks through the hallway, George Seifert. You're like, there's Bill McPherson and Ray Rhodes and Mike Holmgren, Bob McKittrick. You knew we were going to put a whooping on some of these teams.
And Karma Policy.
Karma Policy is another guy. So, I mean, it was loaded.
So we were flying out in 2000 at Youngstown State to play Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and we weren't flying charter, right? So we got these cheap tickets from Pittsburgh to San Francisco. And we called Mr. DeBartolo and said, could we practice at the facility? Our players, Youngstown State, never going to get out here again. And oh yeah, you can stop by, just call this person and they'll let you practice. I said, well, we'll just get out of the bus and then we'll ride down the Pacific Coast Highway and go to San Luis. And so we get there. I mean, he's got it set up like we're getting Super Bowl rings or something. And he's got, Terry Donahue was working for him after Terry had been done coaching at UCLA. Bill Walsh came in and spoke to our team. Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott came over. And I'm thinking, I didn't ask Mr. DeBartolo for any of this. I just wanted to borrow a field, right? But he just made everybody feel special, and he knew how to build teams.
You know, when I was there, the thing I remember is he had an organizational meeting at the start of every year. He walks in the building and there's the secretaries, the custodians, people that work in the food line, coaches, everybody's in there.
Team meeting.
And he doesn't speak for very long, but we're here to service these players. We're here to win games. And, you know, it was very, eye-opening, and it was awesome.
And like you said, he got that facility and the rehab stuff, and he took, he crossed every T and dotted every I, and good teams do that, right?
That's right. He was on the cutting edge, and I think that's what it takes to be a dominant force.
So who was the head coach at the Steelers then when you went to the Steelers?
I went to the University of Pittsburgh with
Paul
Paul
went to the
Hackett.
University of Pittsburgh, okay.
Yeah. Coach Holmgren, I was there one year, and Holmgren was really hot. He had been offered a lot of jobs, and he called me Gruber. He said, "Hey, Gruber, you need to go somewhere and coach and try to apply some of the things you've learned here." Well, Paul Hackett had been Bill Walsh's offensive coordinator. He left to go to Dallas. Hackett was a great coach, too. Great quarterback.
I still have my notes when he was the Cleveland Browns.
He was a great coach.
Quarterback coach. I went and sat at his desk.
Yep. He was
meticulous.
Meticulous, man. I love working for Hackett. And it really helped me get another perspective on the quarterback position because he coached Joe. He was with Tom Landry. He had some really great ideas and drills and just ball handling, different things I'd never really thought about. And so I went back to Pitt. And then Holmgren got the Green Bay job, and I went to Green Bay from Pitt.
Hey teammates, I want to tell you about a project we're working on with Youngstown State University. One of the ways Ellen and I have decided to give back is through the Trestle Institute for Leadership and Teamwork. We've collected a set of successful business and nonprofit leaders to serve as guest servant leaders in partnership with the Sokolov Honors College to teach university students teamwork, leadership, and personal skills. We teach from a foundation built on gratitude, excellence, hope, love, and selflessness. If you're a young person or parent helping to search for a unique college experience, you can learn more at trestleinstitute.ysu.edu or ysu.edu. Links will be provided in the show notes. And so how long were you there at Green Bay?
3 years.
So what was the best thing that Coach Holmgren did about building team?
He was an invest-in-yourself guy. Mike Holmgren, he taught us the accumulation of knowledge is a powerful thing. So is the accumulation of nothing. Holmgren was about 6'6".
Oh, I know. He's a big
He'd walk
dude.
down the hall to go to the bathroom or whatever. He'd look in your office. He'd look in your office. He wouldn't say anything either. He'd just look in your office. He'd walk back. He'd look in your office. A couple hours later, he'd walk down the hall again. He'd look in your office. I remember one day he comes back. He yelled at one of our coaches. I've walked by your office 4 times. I haven't seen you in there looking at film doing nothing. He goes, "This is an accumulation of knowledge business. Now go get me some knowledge." I remember him yelling at the guy. And I really, you go right back to work. But listen, there's a lot of people, as you know, in this business now, in every business, that are just going half-assed through the whole thing.
Right.
Hey, let's just go, let's go recruit, or hey, let me see what's going on the Red Zone, www.com. Let me see what jobs are open.
Yeah.
Or they go over here, tell stories, or let's go for a long walk, whatever. No. You go in there and you go watch some goal line offense, and you come up with a goal line package that's going to put us on the cutting edge of goal. And you go over there and look at 5-man scat protections, empty formations. And you get on top of the red zone. And you come up with some new drills. Accumulate some knowledge. And Andy Reid and Mariucci and I, we were starving to impress them.
Right.
We really wanted to have something to offer. And we used to have a big whiteboard just like that right there. And we put the playlists up there. And all the new plays were in red. And Mike would walk in, whose play is that? And Andy Reid, who played for Holmgren at BYU, he goes, "Oh, that's my play." And Andy Reid would get to play in the game plan. He'd get it called. And Andy Reid, he'd be walking around like, "Hey, that's my play." It used to really tick me off. But then one day we played the Bears on Monday Night Football. I got a couple plays in, and Mike called them. And one of them was a 33-yard touchdown, Brett Favre's longest run of his career. And I got a game ball. So I got the game ball. I walked back to Andy Reid. I go, "Game ball," But we competed with each other to try to, impress the coach. But that was something that really still resonates with me. And I used to try to convey that to the young coaches that I had on my staff.
Well, and to your team.
Yeah.
Setting the standard. You know, people want someone to show them how good they can be. And they'll do the nothing if you let them. You know, we used to always say when you turn the film on, you either taught them that or you allowed them to do it that way.
Exactly right. I believe that 100%.
And so it sounds to me like Holmgren was like, hey, you can be good. In fact, you know, we were talking earlier on your podcast about Ohio State, Michigan. And I remember when we got to Ohio State in 2001, the overall record was about 20-some games. They were over 500, and we were under 500. Well, a lot of it was because the first 15 or 20 years, Michigan won them all in the 1800s or whatever. And someone asked me one time, well, you know, we'd gotten it back to about within 6 or something. And someone said, well, what do you think the keys were to getting that flipped around? And I said, well, I think there were 3 keys. One was they hired Paul Brown in 1941.
There you go.
And prior to that, the Ohio high school kids, Ohio State was not the first choice. They went to Notre Dame, they went to Michigan, they went to Wisconsin, Iowa. For some reason, Ohio State was not the first choice. The second thing, in my opinion, that happened to begin the long journey to flip the rivalry around was Andy Geiger, who was the athletic director, came in and said, you guys don't even know how good you can be here. And he said, we're going to renovate this stadium, and he went out and got $200-some million. We're going to renovate these facilities. We're going to build the Jesse Owens track. We're going to build the Bill Davis baseball stadium. You don't even know, and he'd come from Stanford, where they had great, comprehensive athletic program. He said, you don't even know how good, and by the way, if anyone says we've never done it that way, you're gone. And it sounds to me a little bit like Holmgren, like, hey, you don't even know how good you can be, but
That's
you got to
right.
go to work.
Exactly right.
And then the last one was we closed the door on the recruiting of Ohio kids to Michigan. That was key as well. So 3 years with Holmgren, and then who'd you go to the Eagles with?
Ray Rhodes. Ray Rhodes was the defensive coordinator.
Right,
He went,
right.
got the head coaching job.
And so was Bowman with you?
No.
No, because he was with the Eagles for a minute there.
Yeah, he came after I had
After
left.
you did, okay. Yeah. All right. So how many years with Ray?
3.
3. Best thing you guys did in Philadelphia to build teams?
Ray was the best I've ever been around with players. I learned a lot from Ray. I mean, he could make you laugh to the point you wet your pants in a meeting. And 3 seconds later, he could really piss you off. He stirred the emotions. Ray was phenomenal. I mean, he could say things that would make you well up and want to cry. He could really make you laugh like a wild hyena, man. And he created great analogies. He could really get you fired up on game day too. But he was a guy that really, when it came to presentation of the game plan or getting to a player, getting on a player without really berating the player, he had a phenomenal ability to teach. He was incredible in terms of keeping it interesting. It's not the plays, it's how you practice the plays. It wasn't ever routine with him. It was always, I couldn't wait to the meeting to see what he said. I wonder if he's going to yell at me. It was a unique experience.
Great communicator, huh?
Great, yeah, he was phenomenal. He was really fun to be around.
So then you got your first head coaching job.
Yeah, with Al Davis.
With Al Davis. And you'd been through a little bit in college, but a lot in the pros. And I know when I first got a head coaching job, it was like all of a sudden, okay, now all this time I sat in those chairs saying, well, if I was ever the head coach, I would do this, or, all that you were thinking about. What was the first thing that you did to say, hey, I got to build a team here with the Raiders?
Well, the first thing that happened really was I get the job, and you have to hire your coaching staff, which was hard. But when we finally got that all settled, we started the off-season program. And there were only 9 guys in the off-season program. It was in California. We weren't very good. I don't think the morale on the team was very good.
Were you Oakland or L.A.?
Oakland.
Oakland.
And all the players, a lot of them didn't live in California. They moved over here in the off-season, lived. We had 9 players. And I wanted to have a mini camp right away because I wanted to install my offense, and I wanted to see our coaches coach, and I wanted to coach, man. We only got 9 players. And back then, you couldn't have a mandatory mini camp until, I don't know what it was. But anyways, we had this guy named George Karras. He went out and he signed like 100 players. It was a tryout camp, basically. They got a weekend contract. So we had our 9 or 10 veteran players, maybe 20. We ended up recruiting some others. And we went out there and installed the game plan. We went out there and practiced for 3 days. And we actually found 2 players that made that team. One of them's Louis Riddick. He's an announcer on TV.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He made our team and started for us as safety. But you know what it did? It taught me that there's players everywhere.
Right.
And Al Davis loved that. If you were a player, he didn't care if you had any experience, if you had speed, if you had size. He was interested in you, man. And the love he had for football, the knowledge he had for football, it's almost like all he cared about was winning with the Raiders. And if you were with Ohio State or you're with the Chargers or Philadelphia, you ain't no friend of ours. This is the Raiders. And it was I don't know, it just kind of elevated my competition. You know, we got to beat the Broncos. We hate the Chiefs. We hate the people in our division. You know, we just created this state of rivalry that we walked around in. And to be seen with Al Davis at the owners' meeting or seen with Al Davis walking through the airport, it made me feel pretty proud, you know. It was cool. He was an icon to me.
Oh,
and to have, you know, Eddie DeBartolo saying you did a good job, or Eddie DeBartolo telling you better pick it up. You want to be judged by what you think are the best.
Yep.
And to have Al Davis say, that was a lousy practice, or that was a good practice. He called me Butch. Hey, Butch, that was a good job. You know, that's kind of like
right.
$1 million award or something. But I like being judged by him.
And so did the players like that too, in terms of looking for his, you know, approval?
I think so. I think he had certain players that he really liked, and those always weren't the same ones that the coaches liked.
Oh, okay.
So he had a unique vision for speed and size, but it was a fast track. He could walk in here and put the punt protection on the board. And he would say, "What is the left guard doing right here?" And I wouldn't. I said, "Shit, I don't know." You know, you're involved in the offense, but you better know. You better know, because you would smell his cologne about 9 o'clock at night, because he would come in. He'd be looking for you. He knew he had all his questions.
So he knew X's and O's.
Oh, he knew. He was the coach of the year in the NFL. Not a lot of people don't know. Al Davis was.
I guess I don't look at it.
Yeah, he was offensive line coach at USC, Citadel. He's a football coach.
Well, he was a Syracuse guy, wasn't he?
Yeah. So anyways, he knew the game.
I didn't realize that.
And he sat in his house and he studied the game all day. And he had people around him that knew the game. So he had access to a lot of information, and you better have answers when he came looking for you.
Then you had the chance to be at Tampa Bay.
Yep, Tampa Bay. That was fun.
Super Bowl champions. Much of the same staff, or no?
Defensive staff.
Defensive staff? Okay.
That was a tough time, really. You know, you get traded here in the middle of the night.
Right.
And you succeed a guy that was a hell of a coach and a great guy.
Yep.
And I knew Monty Kiffin, because Monty and I would collaborate, study football in the summers. Well, Marinelli and Joe Barry and Tomlin, they all wanted to go with Coach Dungy to Indianapolis, but they had a year left on their contract.
Oh.
And they all assumed, I think, maybe they would be able to go. And I said, you know, we got a good defense, man. We got a hell of a defense. We got some really great players. I want to try having this defense. I want to keep this defense together. Right. So I tried to sell myself, and we kept the defensive staff with that defense. And then I had to hire a bunch of offensive guys because the Raiders wouldn't let me bring my coaches. Yeah. And Bill Muir, the offensive line coach, was already hired by Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was taking a Tampa job. He's bringing his line coach, and Bill Muir signed a 3-year contract. So Bill Muir walks in. I never met Bill Muir. He's a tough, became one of my best friends. He said, hey, I'm the line coach. I said, what do you mean you're the line coach? Well, I got a 3-year contract. I said, well, do you want to be the offensive coordinator? Sure. I made him the offensive coordinator.
Wow.
So really it was a strange turn of events, man. Coming here in the dark with nobody you knew. You got some defensive coaches that really probably aren't feeling real good about not going with Coach Dungy.
Right.
And you got to put your offense in, and it was a great defense, but it wasn't a great offense. We had a long way to go, so it was a challenge.
But it ended up being a good team.
Ended up being a really good team.
Right.
You know, and we raised the standards on the offense. Brad Johnson, our quarterback, played great, and we played our best football when we had to.
Right. So thinking back through all of your career, give me 3 coaching colleagues that really personified being great teammates, team members, team builders that you coached with. 3, I'm not saying they're the best 3 coaches you ever coached with, but when you think of who really did a great job helping build team and why?
That's a good one. You know, I would say Mike Holmgren was great just because he had been with the 49ers. He had been with Lavelle Edwards at Brigham Young. He had been a winner. He had seen and been at the highest of levels.
You know, that's an important thing. I've been having a lot of conversations with people about this and that, and one of the things, have they ever been around people who have excelled? Because they may know all the, might as well be AI, right? I mean, they know all the data and they all, but do they know the art of winning?
Holmgren had confidence in himself too. He had a lot of confidence in himself. He hired young guys. I was a young guy. Andy was a young guy. Mariucci was a young guy. He had a lot of confidence that he would be able to teach us,
right,
and that we would be willing to learn and go find him the information he was looking for. But he had a great ability to, create an environment where you really wanted to come in there. Mm-hmm. You know, I can still remember him in front of the team. He was very charismatic, and people liked him, and people believed in him. They trusted him.
Yeah.
And he had something that we needed in Green Bay. They had been down a long time. He had this white horse he was on. He gave us light. Yeah. He gave us confidence. But I remember that vision he had. I remember we made a trade the 7th or 8th day he was there. We made a trade with Atlanta to get Brett Favre. And he walked in there and he had all the defensive coaches, everybody. And he goes, I really don't want to hear about anybody complaining about what we did. We traded a 1st-round pick for a guy that was drafted in the 2nd round, was like a backup for Atlanta. I picked him up at the airport. And he says, hey, Brett Favre, if he's successful, we will be successful. If he's not successful, we won't be successful. Now, we're going to make him successful. And we worked our ass off with that guy. And Favre was awesome. And look what he became, a 3-time MVP. But he got everybody to buy in on make Brett Favre's. Don't go to practice if you're the defensive coordinator and run a double corner blitz and try to make them look bad. You stay on the script, you know, and go out of your way to say, hey, Brett, how you doing? Hey, Brett, how you doing? Everybody was on board with helping make this guy a superstar and a leader of our team. And I think that's the greatest thing I learned from Holmgren.
All right, so Holmgren's one.
Holmgren's one. I would say Walt Harris would be number 2. You know, because he just had the work ethic that you got to have.
And he had a gentleness to him, but an authority because of how smart he was, at least in my interactions with him. He was
a complex guy.
Yeah, but
there was an off switch and an on switch. It's almost like when he turned the off switch on, we'd go golfing, we'd drink a beer together, we would laugh and have a great time like we're best friends. But when it went to work, he says, criminy, if that 3 technique wasn't in a 3 technique, you're going to know about it.
Right.
Or if your card wasn't drawn very well, I mean, he would get on the road. We'd go on the road to a golf tournament. He goes, you know what? This is not a golf tournament. I'm going to interview you. I'm going to see what you know about our offense. He's asking me a question about 256 Z-Shack. What is 256? What about 88 Blue? When is that a good play? You're driving a car. You're like, Jesus Christ, I can't even hardly concentrate on the road. He was a very serious, meticulous tip sheet. learned about the tip sheets that you got to have for the quarterbacks, the films you got to make, grade the feet, the decision, and the throw. He was awesome, man.
And the people around him felt that, and that's how you build.
Yeah. That's why the quarterback always played good for Walt.
Yep.
You know? Anyways, he would be number 2.
Okay, 3.
You know, number 3, I would have to say is Al Davis. You know,
cool.
even though he had the fear factor going for him.
Right.
Like, oh man, what's he going to do to me now after the game? He had the, he had the brand of the Raiders. It was all him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He made it important.
He took care of the alumni. That always impressed me. My first game was against the Dallas Cowboys preseason game. I'll never forget this. We're in an old Texas stadium. I go out there. I'm nervous as hell. It's a preseason game. I go out there, and on my sidelines, there's Jack Tatum standing right next to me, and Jim Plunkett. And there's Ted Hendricks walking over there. And I see Cliff Branch is standing right there.
Wow.
And on my staff is Fred Blitnikoff and Willie Brown. I'm the head coach of the Raiders, man. I got these guys with me.
Right.
You know, we're going to kick your ass.
Yep.
You know, but he had this strong belief in his team. It's all about us. There is nobody else. And I loved it. And I think that's what's missing now is you got guys that transfer after 1 year.
Oh.
Yeah, hell, I'm gonna go transfer over here. I got guys on 4 teams in 4 years.
Right.
There is no loyalty. There is no buy-in. If you're with the Raiders, man, you better invest yourself every drop you got in the silver and black. And I love that about him.
How about 3 players that you thought helped you make great teams?
Rich Gannon would be one, my quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, he was on his 5th team. He was drafted
The
by
Super Bowl year he was?
when he went to the Raiders.
Yeah.
He had been cut by New England and cut by the Washington and cut by Minnesota and I think cut by Kansas City, and he had everything we needed, man. He was like a Philly cab driver, you know. He'd roll down, hey, get out of my way. You know, he was a lightning rod for us, man. He lit us up on the practice field. He raised everybody's. He was smart, competitor. He was the it factor for me. I loved coaching him. You know, coaching Jerry Rice and Tim Brown on the same team, 2 Hall of Fame receivers. Right. You know, we had to be careful with the ball distribution.
Sure. Yeah.
But the way they practiced, they never missed a practice. They were never late to a meeting. Hell, they ran full speed in walkthroughs. But watching those 2 guys, the way they operated together was great. And really, I think Warren Sapp, I hate to say it, Rondé Barber, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, that combination here in Tampa. Warren Sapp's the guy that taught me about loving the misery. It'd be hot as hell out there. You know, I made the guys wear pads, full pads, pants, everything. And I remember Warren going, I love the misery. I love the misery. I go, what the hell is he talking about? I mean, we're trap blocking them. We're double teaming them. We're doing everything we can to get after him because he'll ruin practice. And we are really trying to get after his ass. And I remember, I love the misery. I remember talking to him. I said, what are you talking? He goes, you know, if I can play good and I'm miserable, I'm going to be just fine, you know. But he's the first guy that taught me to use a timeout on defense so he can rest.
Right.
I mean, you see all these D linemen tapping out. Right. Well, we're playing Detroit one year. I took a timeout on defense. And the fans are like, what the hell are you doing? Well, our trainer ran out there and gave Warren a drink of water. Next sack, strip, fumble, game over.
Right.
So
he was
those great players. You know, they you know, you lay down in bed at night. You remember some of the days where you go to the stadium and you're on the bus, and you go, "Hey, is Sapp here?" The guy goes, "Yeah, okay, let's go.
Let's go."
You know, let's go play.
Well, you know, Paul Brown used to have a saying. Someone asked him about, you know, when sometimes you have to discipline players, you know, and so forth. Allegedly, Paul said, discipline is in direct proportion of how good the backup is. The backup to Warren Sapp wasn't good enough, so we're going to hold the bus.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is sometimes. You know, the great players, they get a little bit different treatment sometimes because they've earned it.
So how about the team? You go to ESPN with one of my heroes, Ron Jaworski, and that's a team of its own, putting on that show. What makes a good teammate in the media?
You know, Mike Tirico, I think Jaws would tell you, if it wasn't for Tirico, me and Jaws would have screwed that whole thing up.
Okay.
We had more fun together. I was happy with the three-man booth, but, you know, Mike Tirico was the quarterback. He was going to distribute the ball,
Okay.
the point guard. And when you're a broadcaster, the way I learned it is you really got a 24-second shot clock. And the play caller, you got to listen to Mike. You got to listen to his cadence. So when he's talking about, hey, the Ohio State offensive line, la, 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 you don't jump in and say, well, you know, look at that defensive back. You got to kind of piggyback off each other. But Mike taught us how to be good listeners. He really fed us some grapefruits that we could hit. You know, he was a team guy all the way. And we had production meetings. Our preparation was very extensive.
That's what some people don't understand.
No,
that
man.
Building that team, you didn't just show up and watch the game.
No, Tirico, he's a master too of the cameraman, when to use spider cam, when to use the end zone camera, when to go to this guy, his pronunciations, the production meeting with players and coaches. He had earned a lot of people's respect. And I think people look forward to seeing us when we showed up to do a game, because we were pretty informative and we weren't trying to kill anybody. It's a terrible call, you know. Mike put a lot of time in.
So is Mike, or whoever that head guy is in the booth, is he the producer that tells you when to go to what camera, or?
No, we have guys in the truck.
And so they're in
your ear.
Your ear saying, okay, we're going to the spider cam or whatever.
A lot of times you have a talkback button. So I'd hit the talkback button where I could talk to you without the broadcast hearing it. I'd say, hey, don't you think we should do this? Or don't you think we should do that? How about going over here? Mike has all this expertise. He was able to, I think, just make the broadcast richer with his experience and his knowledge of how all the pieces fit together.
So you did that, what, 5 years?
I did 9 years.
9 years.
7 years with Mike, and then
5 with Jaws. Or how many with Jaws?
Jaws was like the first 2 or 3 years, I think. First couple years.
So did it come anywhere close to the excitement of preparing for a game as a coach?
Yeah, it did.
Did it?
I thought I'd go right back to coaching.
Uh-huh.
But I had more fun doing this. I got to see every team practice. I got to sit in some of their meetings.
Right.
Hell, I got to see it and feel it. And I got to do 63 quarterback camp shows in the off season.
Right.
I got to do the draft. I got to see all these cool films and videos and keep studying. And I love being around Mike. And we had a lot of fun going to these places. We'd fly in there and we'd get to go see you practice and meet your players and ask your coaches questions. And we'd go golfing every once. We had to play golf with Donald Trump. We had some really cool times together, man. I miss Mike. I really do. And I still enjoy listening to him.
So when you came back and coached the Raiders after 9 years, right, being out, what was the difference in trying to build a team from when you left to 9 years later in how the world changed?
Well, the hard part of building a team now is first of all, you got to hire your coaches. You know, and a lot of your coaches aren't available because they have contract issues. Yeah. They can't leave. And you don't know a lot of the guys that have come up in the business after being away for 8 or 9 years. So hiring a coaching staff was tough. Getting used to the player association rules. There's a certain amount of times you can't be on the field. You're only allowed to have so many.
So did those become more stringent?
Oh, yeah. You're only allowed to have so many padded practices. You got to be real careful in the off-season program, your quarterback orientation, the amount of time that you shrunk. So you had to reinvent your practice calendars. We have to get repetitions. I don't care what anybody says. Repetition is the mother of learning. So if you're going to take away all this time, where are we going to get the reps? So we had to go 2 fields at once. You know, we had to find a way to get more reps. But anyways, there were some real challenges with the coordination of hiring a staff, putting your practice schedules in place. And then, you got the salary cap issues. Yeah. You got restraints on who you can sign and who you can't. But it was still a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So I think it'd be valuable for our viewers and listeners and whatnot, who a lot of us have gone through. We did this for a while, and then we did this for a while, and then so forth, and the old what's next question. And you've been a master at college, then pro, head coach, then media, head coach. Now you're in the media world again. All the while, you've stayed really on top of your craft. You know, you've not let the world move out ahead of you. What's been the key for you as you've been trying to select what kind of team? So if I'm out there listening saying, well, okay, I'm in a transition time, but I want to be on the right team. I tell my coaches all the time, it's not where you coach, it's with whom. Mm-hmm. That's more important than anything. I don't care what it sounds like, it's with whom. How do you decide when you've gone through a lot of what's nexts, which team you're going to align yourself with?
Better be real careful.
Right?
Better be real careful. Don't jump into any game-changing decisions. Make sure you do a lot of research, you know.
And how does one do that? And I ask these business people all the same on the flip side. How do you go about in your hiring? How do you know everyone's got a good resume? Everyone can interview. How do you know that they're the right team member? How do you know it's the right team? What is it, gut? What is it?
Well, part of it is gut. You know, I believe you should interview the coach, interview the wife too. Get to know what this guy's personal life and history is. Because that says a lot about a person, you know. And but a gut feeling really is, and then some of the resources perhaps that he has, you look into the resources. I mean, who's recommending you?
Right.
Who's he worked with? Where's he been? Don't kid yourself. If I'm going to sign your quarterback, I'm going to call somebody that coached your quarterback and say, can this guy learn? Does this guy like football?
Right.
To the three things you just said about turning the ball over, good decision making. How is he? So you got to really do your research that way. And then you got to spend some time with somebody to research them yourself. Have dinner with them. You know, spend the afternoon with them on the board. I used to make tapes where you would come in and interview and I would put a tape on, and it might be the worst play that Ohio State had in your career there. What the hell happened there? And then the next play, it might be something that came up, but there's no way you could possibly prepare for it.
Right.
So maybe I try to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable so we can get comfortable being uncomfortable together, because this is an uncomfortable business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
See how you handle pressure. And just see, you know, I might put a play in like 93 week against an over defense and get excited about it. And then I might say, hey, can you reinstall that play for me? Let me see how you teach that play. You know, just to see how our players would interpret you as a coach.
Right.
What would be the first thing you would say to the running backs when you walk in and introduce yourself? You know, and these are just some things that I
to get the
learned.
feel. Yeah.
But it's not.
So
an
how
easy-
about when you go to figure out if it's a team outside of what your normal expertise has been? Like you decide I'm going to ESPN. You decided I'm going to Barstool. How did you assess, is this a good team?
Oh, I just went back to my upbringing. All I can offer Barstool is hard work. I'm gonna work. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna be loyal to them. You know, I'm gonna at least be honest with them.
Yep.
And that's it. I'm gonna go in there guns a-blazing. I'm gonna try to learn. I'm gonna be honest with them. Hey, I don't even know how to turn on a camera here. I don't even know how to tweet.
Right.
Here right now, I got my own X page, man. I got my own TikTok.
I hope you got someone to do your X
I don't
page.
know nothing. But I have some young people that are helping me get better, and you know, it's like the accumulation of knowledge. I'm just going to keep getting better and better and better. And all you guys out there, you better watch out, because I'm coming. So that's just kind of my philosophy. And if I don't like it, if I'm not good enough, Portnoy is going to call me and say, you're out. And I've been told that before too. So I'm going in there. I'm like Barry Bonds, man. I used to go to San Francisco to watch Barry Bonds play when he was hitting all those home runs. I was enamored with it. I was like, weird. I got to go see this guy play. And they would pitch around him. One game he got walked 3 times, and I'm cussing out the manager of the other team. Have some guts, you know. I was ticked, but the guy took his cuts, man. And that's kind of how I coached our team. You play Ohio State, you play the Rams. We're going to take our cuts now. You know, we're using all our ammo tonight. We're coming out of our shoes, baby. I'm getting fired up talking to you.
So favorites. I'm going to end with this. Some of your favorites. What was your favorite position to coach?
Favorite position? Quarterbacks.
Okay. What do you think would be your favorite choice? You're now the owner of the team, okay? What would be your favorite choice for the next head coach? A former head coach, or a current DC, or a current offensive coordinator? You just bought the team, and you're...
I'd take a former head coach.
Former head
Not
coach.
because I'm a former head
No,
coach.
no.
But I want a guy that has had to deal with all the fires. There's a lot of fires burning, man. And it's not just calling plays and coaching quarterbacks. It's a lot more than that. So I want somebody that has the big picture, that has proven. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want just any ex-head coach. I want somebody I believe that, fits our program here. And usually guys get better with reps. And sometimes you get a guy in his second turn, he's a little bit better.
Well, it's like a team.
Yeah.
Like Marcus's team with Notre Dame had that early loss, and they got a heck of a lot better. If they didn't have that early loss, who knows? Ohio State had that tough loss to Oregon and tough loss to Michigan. All of a sudden, you can go to a lot of teams. I learned more from my losses than my wins. I'm sure a coach in their career saying, well, man, if I'm ever a coach again, I won't make that mistake. Or I learned that was a good idea.
What people don't realize is when you're a head coach, the first question the owner asks you, at least Al Davis asked me, is who can you bring with you? I mean, you walk in, okay, Jon Gruden, you're the head coach. Well, who are you getting on your staff? Who's your line coach? Who's your D coordinator? Who's your secondary? Who's your strength coach? Who? You're like an owl. I'm like, well, and I was always able, one thing I've been able to do and am proud at is bringing good coaches into the building, and I think that's the number one criteria. If I'm an owner and it's an offensive coordinator or an ex-head coach, I'm going to listen to the package he's bringing. Who are you bringing in here?
Right.
If you're an ex-head coach and you're saying, I'm bringing in Bozo the Clown and Cookie the Clown, I ain't hiring you.
Right.
And if you're saying, hey, you can get this line coach, you can get that D coordinator, you can bring in these systems.
How about this in college
I'm
now?
interested in that.
Who can you bring in the portal with you?
Exactly.
Oh, I mean, that world, we won't get into that one. Okay, last rapid fire favorite. You've been in a lot of cities. You've been blessed, okay? And we talked about going out to dinner, interviewing a coach and so forth. So, favorite restaurant in Knoxville? Probably too broke to go to a restaurant back then.
Well, I go to the Ruth Chris. It's right on the river there. It's
Jeff Haygood's place.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I like Litton's.
Litton's?
It's a sandwich, man. It's unbelievable.
How about in Cape Girardeau?
Man, I wouldn't know Cape Girardeau.
6 months?
Howard Johnson's, the vending
okay.
machine.
Stockton, Pacific, favorite restaurant?
Been a long time, Coach.
Okay. San Francisco. Ooh.
I'm an Oakland guy. I go to Apps.
Apps? But when you coached at the Niners, you lived where, down Santa Clara way?
I coached here. I had no money. I was like the...
okay. You didn't go to a restaurant.
No, I was eating at the freaking...
How about Green Bay? I bet you our viewers would love to know the best restaurant in Green Bay. What's the one A.J. Hawk said they used to always go after the games?
I go to Brett Favre Steakhouse when I'm in Green Bay.
Okay, yeah.
But there was this big steak restaurant. I can't remember the name of it. Me and Andy Reid and Mariucci would go there. I'll think of it when you leave.
Okay.
But they had the steak. It was this big, I swear. And if you ate the steak, you got your steak free.
Yeah.
And they put your Polaroid picture on the wall. So Andy Reid gets the steak. He eats the steak. I can still remember him reaching over and taking 2 or 3 bites that Mooch wasn't going to eat. He ate some of Steve's steak. Then we went in there and get another steak. And the owner comes up and he says, hey, Coach Reid, it's really a one-time deal. He only has 6 pictures of Andy. Right. But I remember that.
How about Philadelphia?
Philadelphia. I have no idea.
The Palm.
See, you're a high roller, man. You're eating at these fancy places. I'm grinding.
No, I was at the 1AA banquet.
I'm at the Outback Steakhouse.
Right,
or something.
right. How about Tampa Bay? Speaking of Outback.
Well, Tampa Bay, I do know. I go to Eddie V's. Mm-hmm. Roca. It's called Roca.
Huh.
Rocca. You got to go to Roca. And I really like Burns Steakhouse. It's good.
We took our team there when we played in the the Outback Bowl, and that was big.
You know, Eddie DeBartolo's wife.
It's got a restaurant. Yeah,
Sacred
Candy's
Pepper.
got one.
It's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You should go try Sacred Pepper. It's right down the street.
Well, you're the best, man.
Love you, Coach.
Appreciate you.
No, there's nobody like you, man.
Till the next time. Can't beat this guy. It's all about the team.